Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. And today we are continuing to look at all the changes to the classes in the 2024 Player's Handbook, and we're going to join the Holy Rollers and look at the Cleric.
We got our hands on the 2024 Player's Handbook and have had a pretty thorough read through the entire thing. And today we're going to talk about the changes to the Cleric class, both the base class as well as some of the changes to the subclasses, the various feats and spells that may impact how you will be playing the Cleric using the 2024 rules. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get rolling.
All right, so stepping back for a moment, big picture, the Cleric remains a very potent divine spellcaster with excellent support and healing and a strong suite of damage-dealing spells. If you love being the character who is responsible for holding the life and death of your party members in your hands and channeling the will of the gods themselves, you will still love playing the Cleric in the 2024 rules.
If we look at the big picture of the changes to the Cleric can now choose whether they want to be a warrior priest or more of a backline support caster, irrespective of their subclass choice. Healings become stronger, but is still somewhat inefficient. But clerics will enjoy more flexibility and more usage of their channel divinity.
So kicking things off, the Cleric is strange in the 2024 rules because it feels like a lot has changed on paper. But in my opinion, very little has changed in actual practice. Like the wizard, clerics now have a fixed number of spells prepared. It's not your level plus your int mod. It's just straight up in the table. The clerics get a little fewer spells prepared than the wizard does because they're going to get extra ones from their domain spells that are also always prepared. The big thing, and we all knew this, is that you're now getting your subclass at level 3 instead of level 1. Instead, you're going to have a choice of your Holy Order at level 1.
So Holy Order lets you, at first level, pick whether you want to be a martial weapons and heavy armor using cleric, or an extra cantrip and the ability to add your wisdom to arcana and religion checks cleric. So you really are choosing whether you want to be like frontlines warrior cleric or backline support spellcasting cleric. This used to be a choice that came down to which subclass you picked.
Yeah.
And I like that we've separated it from that.
It also makes it an interesting dip because I feel like there's going to be some builds that are going to want to dip in here just to like get easy access to heavy armor and martial weapon.
Yeah, true.
Which
feels weird that the cleric's your go-to dip for heavy weapon.
Yeah,
or
right,
heavy
because
armor.
it gets around those multi-classing restrictions, right?
Yeah.
Now, Channel Divinity is the next thing that you're going to get now, and it starts with 2 uses, and it caps out at 4 ultimately, and whereas previously you regained all on a short rest, now you get just 1 use back per short rest. But you get a couple different ways of using it. Turn Undead is always still there, and it's still good. It's just that the Destroy Undead part of it that you got as you leveled up, it now is just doing radiant damage to those undead. It also now explicitly frightens and incapacitates the undead that are affected by it, which does, and this is a potential nerf, because one of the interesting things that used to be cool about Turn Undead was that a lot of undead are immune to the frightened condition, but the Turn Undead frightened them without imposing the frightened condition.
Right.
But now it doesn't. Now, at the same time, it still incapacitates them.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is still, it's hard. We'll have to see it in play.
Yeah.
You also got a few other options on how you can use your channel divinity. Every cleric has Divine Spark, which either heals a creature or deals damage to it. So if you don't know what to do with your channel divinity, you can Divine Spark.
I really like that you have a use for Channel Divinity that just is the thing that clerics like doing, which is either harming or healing.
Yeah. It's like, my Channel Divinity has not been useful today. Let me just deal some damage or let me save my ally.
Yeah.
It's good.
So the other big change now is to Divine Intervention, which is a lot more constrained in scope, but also a lot more exciting, I think. So at level 10, you can plead your god for Divine Intervention, and you just get any cleric spell or 5th level or lower that isn't a reaction once per day.
And at 20th level, it's basically now just the wish spell, but once you use it, you can't use it again for 2d4 rests. So it's kind of like Little Wish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is cool.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
When we move on to the subclasses, okay, one thing that you are going to notice is a big change is that clerics, who used to have the most subclasses in the whole game, are brought back in line with everybody else in the 2024 rulebook, which means they get 4. And those 4 are Light, Life, Trickery, and War. Light and Life have some minor tweaks, but they largely stay the same.
Yeah, I think the life domain is going to just love the boost to healing in general. And I think you're also going to enjoy as the life domain that if you don't want the heavy armor and you wanted to be able to just be the backline priestly healer, you can now, because Potent Cantrip and Divine Strike are also separated from the cleric subclasses. So you can be a life domain cleric that doesn't have heavy armor, that sticks to the backline and just uses your cantrips and has the potent spell casting thing, which I think a lot of it feels more like the white mage archetype better.
Yeah. One of my favorite now subclasses is actually the war domain. And the main reason is that my biggest sadness, all of my excitement about playing a cleric usually comes from the combination of spiritual weapon and spirit guardians. But they nerfed spiritual weapon so that it now requires concentration, and I cannot have both those spells active at the same time. The war domain gets a concentration-free spiritual weapon and Shield of Faith. And
you have to expand a channel divinity for it. But so concentration-free spiritual weapon still here. It's just now a war domain thing. Yeah.
And so you can play the war domain and then you get your beautiful
spiritual weapon soul vortex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's still there on the war domain. So yay, war domain.
The trickery domain's invoke duplicity is kind of off the chain. So the trickery domain had a couple swaps in its spell list. It loses mirror image and dispel magic and blink and polymorph, and instead gets invisibility, hypnotic pattern, and confusion, which feels like a bit of a side grade. I'm glad that invisibility is here. Hypnotic pattern on a cleric is pretty good.
I love it.
But not having polymorph, which polymorph made it through also quite unscathed. Surprisingly. And so, it's pretty strong, but the duplicate now, you can teleport places with your illusory duplicate that you conjure. You can cast spells through it and it hands out advantage to your ally.
Trickery's looking real fun.
Yeah, trickery is really good now. I quite like it. And again, if you want to be trickery in heavy armor, you can now.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
As we move on to the spells for the cleric, Toll the Dead and Word of Radiance, they're here. They're still here. We mentioned spiritual weapon now requires concentration. That is my sad point for this whole thing.
Okay, so you want to know what makes it even kind of like weirdly sad?
What?
Compared to Mordenkainen's sword.
It's still weird.
Okay, so here's the deal. Mordenkainen's sword is still a 7th level spell. It's a wizard spell. And they boosted it from 3d10 damage to 4d12 plus your spellcasting ability.
Yay.
It still requires concentration. But spiritual weapon was changed so that instead of when you upcast spiritual weapon in 2014, it gained a die every other spell level. Now spiritual weapon gains a die every level. So an upcast spiritual weapon at 7th level does 6d8 damage, which is an average of 27 damage. Guess what else is an average of 27 damage? 4d12. So upcasting spiritual weapon is flat out better than Mordenkainen's sword because spiritual weapon is still cast as a bonus action, whereas Mordenkainen's sword, the initial casting of it is an action. Why do both these spells exist?
I don't know. They literally could have given wizards spiritual weapon, but that wouldn't have made sense. But anyway, Spirit Guardians is still here, still amazing. There are a few subtle changes. One of them is the new rules that it is an emanation, which essentially is the same as radius, but they're using emanation to describe radius from yourself. So it moves with you. So an emanation is just the word that they use to describe that. Also, Spirit Guardians specifically, a lot of spells that had the whole trying to move creatures in and out of them to damage them multiple times, that's been clarified. Spirit Guardians can do damage once per turn.
Yeah, a creature only makes it save against it once per turn.
Yeah.
The other thing with Spirit Guardians is now it used to deal damage at the start of the target's turn. Now they have to end their turn in the Spirit Guardians, which means that they can move away from you and not take the damage. But that is also a rationale to go the heavy armor route, go the war cleric route. Again, as a cleric now, you're probably going to want to get warcaster. This is where some interesting things start to happen, because as a cleric, you could go, I'm going to get warcaster so that I can move up to people while they're in my spirit guardians. And as a cleric, you could get magic initiate as your first level, as your from your origin feat.
Yeah.
To get true strike,
Right.
which you can now use based on wisdom. So you can hit people, and which will now stack with all your potent cantrips, and you can now do that off of a warcaster. So, so as a cleric, you'll have actually a pretty decent opportunity attack.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a really cool trick as a cleric is through magic initiate. And you know what else you're going to take?
What?
Blade Warden Shield.
Right.
So you're going to be a cleric with Magic Initiate that has Blade Warden Shield to boost your, like, obviously you're not going to have Blade Ward at the same time as Spirit Guardians because they're both concentration, but like clerics have always wanted to have Shield. Now they can access it super, super easily and keep recasting it.
Which, let's talk a little bit about the feat options here. So to finish things off with feats, I want to point out, so not only can you grab your origin feat to get magic initiate, so you can grab shield, but also I think inspiring leader is worth talking about, because inspiring leader has one very small change, and that is that it now works with wisdom or charisma, which actually makes it a great option for clerics.
A great option for so many more classes now.
And I think that it makes sense to have your cleric be inspiring. I mean, they say a prayer for the crew, and you're off. The healer origin feat offers rerolls on healing spells when you roll a 1. So, I mean, if you're playing the life domain, you might want to grab the healer origin feat just to double down and make sure you're doing good healing.
I also think that war clerics might want to grab the weapon master feat to snag a weapon mastery, or they might just be really tempted to take one level of fighter.
Final thoughts, bottom line on the cleric. I really enjoy removing the option to tank or focus on spells from the subclass choice. I think that subtle change adds a lot of extra versatility that is very welcome here. Mm-hmm. I will say that along with the wizards, the clerics got the biggest nerf in terms of versatility of subclass options. Hopefully we see more of those come back in future books, but I will also say that you can always play the old subclasses. They have rules in the book to help guide you through the backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
So that is still possible. It's just, we went from the most in the game to the same as everybody else. So it feels like a bit of a nerf, but overall, I think the clerics are coming out more versatile, more customizable, still generally a great support class.
Totally. I do too. Again, the clerics, ultimately I think that the cleric dip is a little bit different in terms of its potency. It used to be that taking one level of cleric gave you so much.
Yeah.
But now you have to wait till 3rd level to get the subclass features, although the heavy although the heavy armor might still be a pretty compelling choice for some multi-class options. I think that I agree with you, Kelly, the ability to customize things is really cool. And and like everybody else, like, I really can't hammer home enough the fact that being able to get ability score boosts alongside the perks from feats is a really big deal for spellcasters.
Yeah.
Right? Because clerics had that same problem as wizards, where you're a primary spellcaster that is going to be concentrating on spells, but you don't have constitution saving throw proficiency. And so you always had to do this choice of like, am I going to play a variant human to take resilient, or am I going to ignore boosting my wisdom in order to get warcaster and then have to wait?
Yeah.
Now you don't have to wait. You just get warcaster at level 4. You've got 18 wisdom because warcaster lets you choose int, wiz, or cha for that. And then as a cleric, I think you're going to be able to like do a little bit more diversification with the other feats that you take.
Yeah.
That you could go the inspiring leader route, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah.
And if you want to have more skills, you can get skilled as your origin feat. I think magic initiate is probably going to be the way to go.
The inspiring leader feels so impactfully flavorful for a cleric.
Yeah.
Like you're not really the face of the party, but when the party needs to set out, you're the
Yeah.
one who gathers everybody around and it's like, listen,
Yep.
let me bestow upon you my holy advice.
Totally. And aid didn't change either. Heroes, so you can still do the inspiring leader aid heroes feast stacking.
Yeah.
And so that combo is still there. You have to be a war domain cleric to do the spiritual weapon spirit guardians.
I'm going to be. That's my new favorite subclass
thing.
of the options.
Yeah, overall, I think that the cleric's relative position is going to feel a little bit different in light of the changes to some of the other classes.
Yeah.
But I think that they're still going to be strong, and they're a fantastic class for new players who are willing to dive into the spellcasting dimension.
If you're excited to play a cleric, or you have any thoughts on the changes that have happened in the 2024 book, let us know about them in the comments below.
The videos that we make on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the work that we do here on YouTube, join our Patreon and get on our patron-only Discord server, chat, hang out with us, and our amazing community.
And if you want to see us struggling to survive without a cleric in the party, you can watch our adventures in the world of Drakenheim, which airs Tuesday evenings right here on YouTube. You can check out all the previous episodes right up over here.
And we have plenty more coverage on all the class changes for 5th edition 2024 right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time
in the dungeon.